Anybody that knew Chris Farley knows of the sad ending to the lovable, big personality that he was. But a part of Chris's story that doesn't really get talked about, and maybe not even known about to most at this point, is that Chris was upset with his last movie to come out that he completed. It might have even hurt his confidence for a moment. But Chris could have been the biggest actor in the world today. There's no doubt that he was just in the genesis of his movie making. This is what should have been for Chris Farley. As Chris found huge attention from people in the very early stages of his time on SNL and popping in and out of movies for small roles, it built him into a giant movie star that never really truly had his one moment by himself. Chris was a main centerpiece on SNL that people had to see every week, but when Chris leaves SNL to push his movie career, he hits it big right off the bat with Tommy Boy, the movie that over time that has ingrained itself in comedy history. But as this was the first big movie for Chris, it would be sadly the last one as well. Tommy Boy was the first big project Chris was the lead in, alongside his friend, David Spade. Chris was no stranger to movie sets. He had many appearances in movies beforehand, with characters that are still loved even today, even if it was just a random moment by a goofy, lovable character, but a moment you love and watch over and over. In 1995, Chris is released from Saturday Night Live, but also soon to be on top of the world, as Tommy Boy came out and took the airwaves and captured everyone's attention and really set the standards for buddy movies that were comedies. Even to this day, after Chris and David end Tommy Boy, they essentially start filming Black Sheep and also capturing one last special moment with the two of them. The movie is not talked about as much as Tommy Boy, or held to such a high standard, but nonetheless is a fantastic movie that people love seeing Spade and Chris together. The film is really just a bonus of having the two of them together, poking fun of the other one. It's a fantastic movie either way, but is much different than Tommy Boy. As the film comes out in 1996, it's the end of the moment with Chris and David being together and controlling the airwave with goofy buddy movies. Sometimes you don't know how much you love something until it's gone. As Chris enters 1997, it's a different Chris Farley than what the public has seen. Chris is bigger and starting to show signs of drug use. To make matters worse for Chris's personal life, it seems that he starts to run into a wall with his own film career. Chris sets out to make movies on his own, waters he's not yet walked out into. In the early 90s, SNL was bigger than it ever had been, allowing a new moment for a new generation to have their own favorite cast members slowly leaving the show, starting their own comedy careers, making films, and Chris was in that group. It's no secret and known by many that Chris was never really a strong writer. He simply lived off his bread and butter of being loud, being able to read the room and what direction to lean to, and having perfect timing, and knowing just how to make people do one simple thing: laugh. Chris would start filming his very own movie on February 21st, 1996 to the 10th of May of that year. The movie was Beverly Hills Ninja. The film had a budget of $19 million and is mostly filmed around California with some oddball locations. It was known to Chris's inner circle that he wasn't excited about the film, and he passed on it several times. Even his managers had told him not to make it and not accept the deal at the time, saying it would just be Chris as an overweight ninja running around in tights looking goofy, and it's not something particularly that Chris was excited about. Although eventually, Chris is offered $6 million to make the movie, a huge payday for just him alone. Chris signs the deal and starts to make the movie. Chris goes into it with open arms and doing mostly what he thought he would be doing, jumping, running, but doing his own comedy to the script, the Chris Farley flavor, The critics that have already caught wind of the film and what it is and what it's about are setting up their gunfire for the movie when it's released. But Chris buckles down and does the work, wanting the film to work. But also in the background, there's a secret movie that Chris has been working on that was hidden from the public. The movie was Shrek, not the version you know today, but believe it or not, many of the same lines and jokes that are found in the actual movie today were simply kept. Chris was the main character, Shrek himself. To what many people didn't know until years later is that Chris had almost finished the entire movie with his voice. He had only told family and friends about the movie and that he was excited about it, but really had no idea that Shrek would become a billion-dollar franchise in the making. Chris's version of Shrek was calm and gentle, but still able to lose his patience. It's a different version of Shrek that Mike Myers would bring to the character. It's a strange element to think that Chris could have been our Shrek if he would have just lived. When Beverly Hills Ninja is released in January of 1997, Chris tells only friends and family. When he sees the film at its premiere, he's devastated by the movie. Some even said that he was privately crying. Chris was looking for more than just being the butt of the joke in his own films. He wanted the industry to take him serious. The film made $37 million, not tanking the studio, but not doing the numbers they hoped it would. And critics began ripping the movie and Chris. He must have felt almost that he was set up, that it seemed like he couldn't make the ones at the top happy. But to this day, there are people that love Beverly Hills Ninja. And oddly enough, Christian Bale hails the movie to this day, saying it's one of his favorite. Chris is starting to let people around him know that he's wanting to be taken serious, more of a dramatic actor, and wanting a film that will show that side of him. By this time, Chris is already filming his last movie that he'll never see completed and come out to theaters. As Chris starts his last full movie with another $6 million payday attached to it, the film Almost Heroes starts filming in July of 1996. When Chris starts the film, it's known that his drug use is out of control. It's no longer kept secret with Chris. It's out in the open where everyone can see it. Chris was monitored heavily during the filming, strictly for insurance purposes, that he could finish the film. Chris in the movie just looking completely out of shape and like someone that's falling apart, and not helping that his character in general is on the dirtier side of hygiene. Once again, Chris is presented as a huge, big, loud, dumb guy in the movie. Not the role he was wanting, but Almost Heroes is a hilarious movie. And if you love Chris Farley, there's no doubt that you'll love Chris in the movie, but it would be his last movie completed. As Chris completes the movie and moves on, he disappears into his drug use. He films one last little part in a movie called Dirty Work for his friend, Norm Macdonald. Chris films his part just months before he dies. And that's it. Chris's movie career is done. He never walks on a film set again. Chris is attached to many different films before his death, but he's never able to start another one. Chris dies in December of 1997 of a drug overdose in his condo. When Almost Heroes finally comes out to theaters, from being delayed, from business deals, and Chris passing away, it hits theaters with not much enthusiasm or even promotion. It's immediately ripped apart by critics, and people, they really just simply don't go see it. Maybe people just didn't want to see Chris at that moment. It had been 6 months since Chris had died, and having 2 movies come out after his death, Almost Heroes and Dirty Work. It's such a sad story to look into. Nobody wanted this for Chris, not even Chris himself, even though he knew he had an addiction. It's a sad loss. There's no doubt if Chris had lived, he would have had a huge career by now. He would have had his moment that he was looking for in the film industry, to show that he was more than just the big goofy guy that Hollywood wanted to keep portraying him as. He would have starred along with his friends, and no doubt been right there with his friends, filming movies, and having his own big roles, just like one of his good friends, Adam Sandler, shifting into dramatic roles. It's a sad thought to think of the art we'll never get to see from a true creator. Chris still makes millions of people laugh today, and if he's never made you laugh, you should give him a try. Chris Farley, and what could have been for film, art, and most importantly, Chris himself.
I just want to tell you that I still love you, and I sure miss you a lot.